Welcome to TYT. I'm Anna Kasparian, and joining us today is Mark Thompson. Cenk is out for yet another day, but it's okay. Also on set, JR Jackson. No one ever mentions you when they start the show, and I feel like
it's a problem, you know. It should be the first.
All right, I hope you guys are having an awesome day. There is a ton of news to get to, and of course, we will dive right into the interview that Trump had with the New York Times. And then remember to use the hashtag TYT Live to tweet to us throughout the show, and we will read your tweets during the break and respond to some of them when we come back from the break. And then a few announcements before we get started with the news.
Anna loves doing these announcements. She loves it. Just bring me more announcements to do.
I was complaining about it like right before we aired. All right, so TYT Old School, there's an episode available for members to watch. Apparently, the conversation yesterday had something to do about whether or not it's acceptable if someone knowingly spreads an STD to someone. This is involving a story regarding a celebrity. I just feel like I don't want to talk about it, but anyway, I just feel bad. It sounds gossipy to me, but you know, Old School has fun, so you guys should check it out.
They do have gossipy aspects.
They do, they do. It was hosted by Cenk, Michael Shore, JR Jackson, and Ben Mankiewicz, so you guys should check it out. All right, tytnetwork.com/join. All right, guys, let's get started with the New York Times interview with Donald Trump, and if you just want a quick summary, he decided to shit on pretty much everyone and blame everyone around him for his failures. So let's get to the first person that he decided to throw under that bus.
Sessions gets the job. Right after he gets the job, he recuses himself.
Was that a mistake?
Well, Sessions should have never recused himself. And if he was going to recuse himself, he should have told me before he took the job, and I would have picked somebody else.
He gave you no heads up at all in any sense?
Zero.
Okay.
So Jeff Sessions takes the job, gets into the job, recuses himself. I then have, which frankly, I think is very unfair to the president. How do you take a job and then recuse yourself? If he would have recused himself before the job, I would have said, thanks, Jeff, but I can't, I'm not going to take you. It's extremely unfair, and that's a mild word, to the president.
So Jeff Sessions is still his attorney general, right? So he's still working with Jeff Sessions. And so this interview is strange considering the fact that he did just openly say, well, if I would have known that he would have recused himself, I would have never hired him. I would have never given him the job. And it's just interesting to see that level of transparency, although I'm not saying transparency in a positive way, I'm saying it in a critical way.
Yeah, he speaks in a very unvarnished way when he is talking about protecting himself. You know, he says it's very unfair to the president, but of course, recusing himself was surprisingly the fairest thing that Jeff Sessions could do to the process, to the investigative process, right? So, but of course, Donald Trump doesn't care about the investigative process, he cares about himself. And everything he says in service of that, he says in a very unvarnished way. And so, yeah, Jeff Sessions is not the first and not the last to feel this sense of being thrown under the bus, as Anna says.
And just to be clear, though, Trump cares about this investigation. He cares deeply about this investigation.
Oh, clearly. In fact, this is evidence that he feels that heat.
Right. I mean, and there's been so much evidence regarding how much he cares about this investigation. I mean, he was transparent about the reason why he fired Comey. He openly said he fired Comey because of his part in investigating possible collusion with Russia. And so it's fascinating to see him, take shots at those closest to him in this administration. JR?
Can we first think about the way this works? The way he thinks this works. He thinks Jeff Sessions is his presidential attorney. He thinks the attorney general is to represent the president and protect him from anything that could possibly come towards him, because that's where his life has been. He's got a team of attorneys to protect him from all the nefarious backhanded deals that he has always done. So he's like, why would I hire an attorney general in Jeff Sessions if he's gonna recuse himself? When you hired Jeff Sessions, the investigations weren't launched yet. You were just elected. You idiot. So why would Jeff Sessions know, hey, they're gonna launch all these investigations into all the nefarious things you've been doing. I should not take the job because I'm going to recuse myself in the future from protecting you from all the investigations that haven't even happened yet. He doesn't know how it works.
But I think, look, because I totally agree that it's very likely that he doesn't know how it works, right? But even so, he is under the impression that people around him need to be loyal to him at any and all costs. Forget about fairness, forget about the democratic process, forget about democracy, forget about the American people. You need to be loyal to Donald Trump regardless of the situation. And so that's what he's really angry about.
Right, and he doesn't connect those dots that JR is talking about. And JR, I don't think he's really even bothering to figure out the logic. What he is doing is he's doing what Anna's talking about, which is making a statement. And this is not an accident. He's saying, hey, Jeff Sessions and all of you who serve in my administration, loyalty to me is the only priority of this administration. And so he quite deliberately isn't doing the math on when the investigation started and all the rest. I think he just wants to make that point.
Yes, and so there was a few more comments that he made in regard to Jeff Sessions, and it had to do with his confirmation hearings. So remember, Jeff Sessions got into a little bit of trouble because he didn't disclose the fact that he had met with the Russian ambassador on 2 different occasions. And so Trump decided to comment on that specific portion of this entire debacle. And he said Jeff Sessions gave some bad answers. He gave some answers that were simple questions and should have been simple answers, but they weren't. Well, I agree with you on that. Why is it that he didn't disclose that he had those 2 meetings with the Russian ambassador? Who knows? But Jeff Sessions was asked about Trump's comments while he was giving a press conference in regard to something completely different. Press conference had to do with the black market sale of illicit products. And of course, the reporters had less interest in that and more interest in hearing Sessions' thoughts on Trump's comments. Take a look.
Given what he said, what is your reaction to those remarks, and how seriously are you considering possibly resigning?
We in this Department of Justice will continue every single day to work hard to serve the national interest, and we wholeheartedly join in the priorities of President Trump. I have the honor of serving as Attorney General. It's something that goes beyond any thought I would have ever had for myself. We love this job, we love this department, and I plan to continue to do so as long as that is appropriate.
All right, so
that's the kind of statement that so many in the White House are kind of used to making, which is to sort of ignore the specifics of whatever the president said and just make a statement about how much you love your job and how much you love serving this country. I'll remind you who Jeff Sessions is, though. He's not a good guy. He's someone who has really not acted on the part of those who are not served by the judicial system, the underclass that need the Justice Department. He is not their representative in Washington. You'll remember he backed President Trump on his advertisement for the Central Park 5. You recall that entire, and the Central Park 5 who were exonerated of that horrible incident. So Jeff Sessions is not one of the good guys, but he finds himself opposite the president at this moment in time anyway.
I know, it's really interesting. It's interesting to see people that you dislike for good reason, fighting with one another. And Jeff Sessions, a standard politician, he comes out there with his poker face, but make no mistake, I mean, hearing the commander-in-chief, the president, talk about you so negatively to a major news outlet can't be fun. Let's hear a little more from Sessions.
How do you feel like you can effectively serve from here on out if you don't have the confidence of the president?
We're serving right now. The work we're doing today is the kind of work that we intend to continue. But I really would like for you to focus now on the work of the individuals behind me that have helped put this case together.
Okay, in both of the videos that we just showed you guys, it starts with Jeff Sessions far away from the podium and then awkwardly walking toward the podium to answer the question. Why does he walk away in between questions? It's so strange. Can we just watch the beginning of the last video? I don't know, it really stood out to me for some reason. Okay, she's asking the question, what's going on? Why does Trump suck so much? In both of the videos. I don't know, it's just interesting.
Well, I mean, and maybe, they're presenting other law enforcement officers and people maybe from DOJ who are associated with the opiate thing, if that's what he was talking about originally. So maybe he's kind of trying to take his place in line, but you're right, it has an odd optic You know,
it really does, and he has like that smirk on his face. Anyway, so
he's got a weird look to begin with. He's kind of got a munchkin-y look, you know what I mean? So to be fair, I think a lot of situations help make it a little more awkward.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, well, there was one other quick portion of that press conference featuring Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and I want to show you that portion because of a comment a reporter made after the fact. So take a quick look at this video.
Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, the president told the New York Times yesterday that the fact that you're from Baltimore concerns him, since there aren't many Republicans from that city. Is that something that's a valid concern in your view? What do you make of that criticism?
As the Attorney General said, we're working here every day to advance the priorities of the Department of Justice, the administration. And as the Attorney General said, we're happy to answer any questions about this Alpha Bay case. It's a very important case. We got a lot of folks here who assisted in that investigation, and that's all I'm going to talk about today. Thank you.
Any questions about Alpha Bay? All right, thank you.
It's not about Alpha Bay. Are you concerned you'll be seen as a zombie Attorney General?
Are you afraid to be seen as a zombie Attorney General? All right, well, Jeff Sessions was one person who was criticized by Trump during that interview, but there was also criticism directed toward James Comey, which you should expect. But the accusations that Trump made in regard to James Comey, in my opinion, just give you a sense of how distrustful he is, how paranoid he is, and how even if someone comes with him or comes to him with information that could be helpful, you know, for strategy purposes, Trump thinks that no, these people have the worst intentions in mind. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So according to the New York Times, Mr. Trump recalled that Mr. Comey and other intelligence officials briefed him at Trump Tower on Russian meddling. Mr. Comey afterwards pulled Mr. Trump aside and told him about a dossier that had been assembled by a former British spy filled with salacious allegations against the incoming president, including supposed sexual escapades in Moscow. Now, for those of you who might have missed that story, and this has never been corroborated, it was the whole thing about how Trump hired prostitutes to urinate on a bed that Obama allegedly slept on. Those accusations, that's the dossier we're talking about. Now, Comey came to him with that story before it broke. So in this interview with the New York Times, Donald Trump said, in my opinion, he shared it, so I would think he had it out there. And the reporter says, as leverage? He's like, yeah, I think so, in retrospect. So he thinks that Comey was using that as leverage against him, when in reality, Comey was trying to help him out and be like, bro, like there's a little bit of an issue here. I just want to make sure it's, you know, at the top of your mind so you deal with it. But he didn't see it as helpful.
Yeah, I mean, even if you kind of accept it as squishy in terms of the truth, it's Comey saying, hey, this is out there, and he's looking for a firm denial from Trump or something along those lines. It was clear that Comey was tentative, to say the least, about his relationship with the president, and he felt this is a very unstable situation, and it's frankly one that a lot of people view as unstable. But it's hard to see that he had any knives out for Trump early on, and yet, obviously, after the fact, it's all coming to, it becomes quite obvious that Trump essentially dumped him purely for the Russia investigation. And just on the Russia investigation, and Anna's so right, he feels the heat of this Russia investigation. All roads and all responses lead back to something concerning Russia. And you can also see the way the White House is falling apart right now. They are all scattering because it is unclear who's going to really bear this responsibility and be hung out to dry. The president is hanging people out to dry every day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting because he expects loyalty from others, but he's not very loyal to anyone, right? He will throw people around him under the bus for the smallest thing, and that's what we've been noticing so far. All right, well, there is another part of this interview that I think is really important, especially given the healthcare debate that's happening in the United States right now. As Congress tries to grapple with their intentions of repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act, Donald Trump has decided that, he hasn't really figured out what he wants more, and any option that goes against the Affordable Care Act is a good option for him. So during Trump's interview with the New York Times, he explained some of the difficulties involving the repeal and replace plan for the Affordable Care Act. And in doing so, he attempted to detail what he thinks healthcare is, but he kind of showed that he's a little ignorant on healthcare policy. So if you don't believe me, I'm gonna read you his response to the New York Times verbatim. He said, as they get something, it gets tougher because politically you can't give it away. So pre-existing conditions are a tough deal because you are basically saying from the moment the insurance, you're 21 years old, you start working and you're paying $12 a year for insurance, and by the time you're 70, you get a nice plan. Here's something where you walk up and say, I want my insurance. It's a very tough deal, but it is something that we're doing a good job of. What? I don't know. There are parts of that answer where I don't even know what he's talking about. The notion that when you're young and healthy, you only spend $12 a year, not even $12 a month. He said $12 a year on insurance is absurd. And then he thinks of insurance, the way that he spoke about health insurance sounded like he was confusing it for life insurance.
Right.
You know, and you hear those life insurance commercials on CNN. Along with super beta prostate commercials where they're like, yeah, $12 a month. And then by the time you're like ready to die, we're gonna give you $500,000. So he thinks that's the way it works.
Yeah, because that's where he gets his information, from the cable news.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
No, it's he was completely at sea as to what he was talking about. And then, as Anna says, he was obviously confusing health insurance and life insurance. He certainly doesn't know any specifics, and we'll get to that in a second about the health care bill. He doesn't know many specifics about many things. Remember, this is a president who is briefed in one-page briefings, preferably those that include his name repeatedly. This is not me just being cute. This is literally what they do at the White House. So it doesn't surprise me that he's adrift on this.
Right, and he's not a fan of briefings. He's been pretty clear about that. And it's obvious in his answers to some of these questions. But what's interesting is, you know, when someone gets to a point where they feel confident enough to run as the leader of this country and one of the most powerful people in the world, you would think that they would just know how the world works, at least a little bit. And it seems like he's completely oblivious to some of the most important components of our lives. But he is also oblivious in regard to his own ignorance. In fact, he thinks he's super intelligent on this topic. He says so himself. He says, these guys couldn't believe it, talking about members of Congress and people around him, how much I know about it. I know a lot about healthcare. No, you don't. No, you don't. You never talk about details or specifics. And then when you make the mistake of doing so, you sound like you don't know anything at all.
Yeah. Look, he is not short on confidence. He's an egomaniacal megalomaniac, right? And he just can't wait to tell you how great he is. In fact, it's probably the only thing he can speak with some authority on. Everything else is being brought to him. He's simply the pretty face of this presidency. And you know, that's the key thing to remember here. This is a popularity contest, and Anna mentioned it a moment ago, and I thought it's a good point. You know, how can anyone ascend to this level and not have some working understanding of government or policies or how things work? Well, because of the way we elect presidents this way, in this time, in this culture, in this moment, because it's a popularity contest. And one thing he does well, and I've said it before here, he messages so effectively. And there are people who drink in that message. And it's a cult of personality. So from his standpoint, all he has to do is deliver that cult of personality, and that's what he does.
That is what he does. Also, he doesn't really know when Congress votes on anything. So I want to give you this exchange with the reporter, Maggie Haberman. He says, well, I say, let's not vote on repeal. Let's just vote on this. So first, they vote on the vote, and that happens sometime Friday? Maggie Haberman responds, next week. Or Monday? Monday. And then they'll vote on this and we'll see. We have some meetings scheduled today. I think we have 6 people who are really sort of okay. They're all good people. We don't have bad people. I know the bad people. Believe me, do I know bad people? Oh my God. Okay, well, if you're not alarmed by his lack of knowledge or his ignorance on this incredibly important issue, you're not alone, because Senator Bill Cassidy feels the same way. Take a look.
So then in your conversations with him, do you think the president understands the political, the policy intricacies of this bill?
I don't think it's important for him to understand the policy intricacies of this bill. What's important for him is to understand the principle. His principle is that there should be a replace associated with repeal.
Okay.
That's exactly what we were just talking about, right? It's not important that he understand it. It's just important that he beat Trump, that he lean into these people and say, hey, look, we got a price to pay if you don't, if you don't follow along with the White House script. Yeah, it's completely disheartening to see the GOP fall in line behind this guy.
Yeah, fall in line, especially when it comes to something that has to do with life and death situations, something that so many Americans rely on, depend on, and need real leadership on. And for them, it's just a game of patty cakes. For them, this is all fun and games, and it's pathetic, to say the least.
To play party politics with these things that affect so many lives. And he's such a populist president in that weird way. In other words, he rode to power on the backs of so many people who need health care and really need government help. It's the true irony. It's been made at that point time and time again. But as Anna says, this is a community of Americans that is going to be dropping through the floor if they roll back what's on the books.
Exactly. All right, guys. Tweet to us using the hashtag TYT Live. We are going to go to break. When we come back, some new information on Mueller's investigation on Donald Trump. He's not going to like it. We're going to give you the details on that, and we will read some of your tweets when we come back. So stay tuned.
Hey, Jack.
I have 5 minutes. Explain the Facebook. Go.
Aaron Wysocki, the commander of the armies of the East.
So for those who don't know, Aaron is actually Cenk's favorite employee.
Aaron, what do you like better? Sarabies or Sarabies? Go. Aaron, I want to do a YouTube live clip, but not live. Go. Hi, Aaron. I'm confused. Is it Cenk Uygur or Cenk Uygur? Go.
What I think a lot of people at TYT and certainly in the audience don't know is that without Aaron, none of this happens.
Yeah, it's all because of me.
So Aaron, what would you do to surface the Young Turks, as they say?
Well, the first thing I did around that is we didn't have a video podcast back in those days. It was only an audio version. And I wanted a video. I wanted to watch it at work in video form. So I just created the video podcast. So this is the free version of the video podcast that still exists today. I created that from scratch. So I would take the YouTube clip and rip it illegally back then off of YouTube and just put it up on iTunes.
What were the things you did to popularize the Young Turks and get?
So one of the very early things that I liked was not necessarily the show, it was Cenk's blogs. I really enjoyed reading those blogs and I wanted to share them as widely as possible. So at the time there was a big wave of what they called social bookmarking back then. And so what it meant was like you pull links from, this is Reddit. What Reddit is today, it was much more popular back then, and there were many different websites.
It wasn't until just a couple years ago when Cenk and I were traveling together, we would share a hotel room. Yeah. 2 grown men sharing a little hotel room. I was like, how much longer do we have to do this?
You're gonna be in there much longer?
No, seriously. I'm like, oh, geez, he's in the bathroom again. So I have to go downstairs and use the lobby bathroom. Like that kind of stuff. Like that's the kind of family that we had, right? I mean, but I think
that was such a smart decision though, because you know what it did? You found people that were dedicated to the company, and in a startup in those early days, you need to find people like that.
Absolutely.
If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
You said I had small hands? They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
Welcome back to TYT. Anna and Mark with you. Lots of really great TYT lives, so I want to read them to you. Keld Visser says, love Mark and Anna on hour one.
Aww.
Also says, your president is a narcissistic idiot. Good luck. So that's nice. Kimberly Colbert, keep your friends close and your enemies in your administration. That's
a good T-shirt.
It's so easy to become an enemy with him,
oh, yeah.
right? Because any little misstep, I had read, and look, take this with a grain of salt because I don't know how true this story is, but I had read that his opinion of Chris Christie changed after Chris Christie tried to hand him a cell phone or a phone that had like germs on it, because he's a germaphobe. And so like that little thing made him change his mind about Chris Christie.
I watched, just because you're talking about it, I watched a video, and maybe you'll be able to remember where this is just yesterday. I saw a video of Trump and a bunch of people trying to decide if it should say made in the, this is part of his made in America thing, whether it should say made in America or made in the USA on the label. And he's got a whole room full of people, and he's going around, Bob, what do you think? Made in America or made in the USA on that label? And you could see people kind of not sure how to answer. He had not indicated how he felt it should read. And as they're going around the room, it's what you're talking about. Like if I answer the wrong way, he may drag me out back and have me,
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't have hired Joe Schmo if I would have known that he'd say made in America.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, Carlos Danger says, so how do I get on this $12 a year healthcare plan? It leaves more money for $16 avocado toast. Sounds good to me, let's do it. Just love it, so good. All right, let's get to some more news. Donald Trump criticized many people surrounding him during his interview with the New York Times, and he even had some comments in regard to Mueller and Mueller's investigation into possible collusion with Russia. Now, I want you guys to hear what he had to say about Mueller, and then I'm going to give you some additional details on this ongoing investigation. Take a look.
Mueller was looking at your finances, your family's finances, unrelated to Russia. Is that a red line?
Would that be a breach of what his actual?
I would say yes. Yeah, I would say yes. By the way, I would say I mean, it's possible that it's condo or something. So I sell a lot of condo units, and somebody from Russia buys a condo. Who knows? I don't make money from Russia. In fact, I put out a letter saying that I don't make from one of the most highly respected law firms and accounting firms.
He put out a letter saying he doesn't take money from Russia. I mean, it must be true. I mean, if you put out a letter saying that you're not doing something, it must be true. Must be true. So he said that Mueller looking into his family's business dealings and business transactions would be a red line. Well, Mueller has decided to cross that red line, and I love it because this is something that has bothered me not only in regard to what's going on with Russia, but just the number of conflicts of interest that take place or exist within this administration have concerned me, and it seemed as though no one was paying attention, no one cared, and the thought of someone using public office to line their pockets and funnel money into their businesses. Look, we all know that there's severe corruption going on, but he takes it to another level. It's incredible because the corruption that we currently have in this country that has been legalized isn't good enough for him. He needs to take it further. So I love that this investigation is broadening in scope. And so a single anonymous source familiar with this probe told Bloomberg that federal investigators are now interested in financial dealings involving Trump, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and White House advisor, Jared Kushner, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, and his former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. And so they are specifically looking at a number of things, actually. Russian purchases of apartments in Trump buildings. That's the reason why Trump decided to mention the fact that, maybe possibly I sold some condos to Russians. Who knows? I sell a lot of condos. Trump's involvement in a controversial Soho development with Russian associates, 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow, Trump's sale of a Florida mansion to a Russian oligarch in 2008. So these are all issues that Mueller is now looking into, and he does not seem deterred by Donald Trump's statements to the New York Times.
This is an administration awash in conflict, right? You can stay at the Trump Hotel a stone's throw from the White House and be helping the Trump organization in that way. And that's not just a theory. That's what's happened since he took office. In fact, most foreign dignitaries and their attachés and entourages, they stay in that Trump Hotel. Why? Because why stay at the Mandarin Oriental when you can stay at the Trump Hotel and say, yeah, we had a great stay at your hotel last night? I mean, that's happening, and it's not happening in small numbers. It's been a boon to that hotel. But his conflicts as far as the real estate empire are concerned are really remarkable, because that's where you can launder money, and it's a good old-fashioned way to launder money, where a lot of money is paid in excess of whatever the appraised value of a property might be.
Yes.
And that's a way now that you're giving somebody money and also laundering money. I think.
Oh, don't even get me started on that, Mark. Don't even get me started on that. Because think about it, okay? I've been following, foreign investments into US properties because of how insane the housing market is, right? And it drives me nuts because yeah, they do it to launder money. And so if they're spending over market value for properties, what do you think that happens to the rest of the market? The rest of the market is artificially inflated, right? And so people, hardworking Americans, America first, because that's what he really cares about, are unable to afford homes in places where homes used to be pretty affordable. That's what's happening right now. And it's because of his cronies, it's because of Jared Kushner and his family traveling to China and encouraging people to invest $250,000 or more in their properties so they can get the golden visa and their ticket to America. Like, that's the stuff that should infuriate his base.
The only thing that is good about what's happening is that it's also ham-fisted. It's all clunky. It's all noticeable. I mean, there's no elegance to the Trump con. And by the way, there was no elegance, though, to the Trump con to become president of the United States. And that's one of the reasons I didn't think it would ever happen. It just seems so clunky. But in the investigation of a conflict of interest, there's that same clunkiness. And I think ultimately there's going to be a lot revealed here. I think Jared Kushner and his associates will maybe the first to be exposed.
Possibly. But their clunkiness, I think, is a symptom of being brought up in a country where if you have certain resources, you're above the law, right? You don't have to answer to anyone. You don't face the same consequences that most average Americans have to face. And so, yeah, why wouldn't they be transparent and incredibly obvious about their shady dealings if all they've ever known is being above the law?
Yeah, that's a great point. They really have never had to answer to the law because of that strata of society. But also, the real estate world is filled with this kind of thing. There are payoffs and all kinds of deals in the real estate world. As you can imagine, a real estate deal of hundreds of millions of dollars has this to the nth degree. So they're really used to this kind of thing. And then when something's found, as Anna says, they just handle like, oh, yeah, I did meet with that Russian guy the one time. Yeah, the 2 times there was a Russian guy and there was one other guy there. I mean, and then there are 3 other guys there. But I mean, and it continues. But they just are used to answering after the fact. I think they bring a lot of that real estate world where anything goes. I think they bring a lot of that to the presidency.
So I really want to comment, I guess, compare and contrast 2 different components of the Russian story, right? Because I think a lot of people are frustrated that oftentimes when you hear from Democrats, establishment Democrats, they're hyper-focused and hyper-obsessed with the DNC emails, right? And so when we talk about collusion, the first thing that some establishment Democrats go to is, oh yeah, the DNC emails. And look, that's bad, okay? I agree that's bad. But for me, what's much more concerning are the business dealings, right? That's where I want the focus to be. That's where I want, the FBI's resources to go, and I want to find out if there were, pay-to-play situations going on, if there were some financial dealings happening, in order to persuade Trump to do certain things, or if Trump is helping foreigners launder money in his properties. Like, that's unacceptable. Anyone anyone else who does that would face consequences. So for me, that's the real issue. Again, the DNC stuff, the emails, yeah, whatever. It's bad.
Yeah, they almost look quaint by comparison.
This is much worse. And so if Democrats genuinely care about messaging, and it seems like they don't, they seem more obsessed with the fact that, Trump won and Hillary lost. But if they genuinely care about justice and making sure that you hold Trump's feet to the fire, this is where your messaging should be. This is where you should be focusing and ensuring that some form of justice gets carried out.
Yeah, no, I think the conflict of interest thing also is a different way to message and would be a smart way to message, because the Russia thing, people are burning out on some level. They're not really focusing and distinguishing what part of the Russia investigation is what. And I also think that the right-wing media, and they do a good job in this country, that's all talk radio and that's Fox News Channel and all the rest, they do a good job of ignoring the Russia thing. They put it all in the same category, so that changes in the Russia story are not really represented to an entire audience. Now that audience might be lost anyway, they might not, but I think it's a clever idea to change the messaging. So we're talking about conflict of interest.
We're talking about how this screws Americans over, right? Instead of focusing on how it screwed the Democrats over. Because let me tell you something, you're not gonna convince members of his base to switch over and support Democrats by saying, oh, we didn't like what happened with Russia because of what happened to the poor Democrats. They don't care. But what they do care about is how this impacts their day-to-day lives. How it is that someone that they elected actually isn't interested in representing them, but is interested in, using his, business ventures or whatever to profit as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, and the other thing that the Democrats could do is get off of their jihad about getting those voters over. You probably aren't going to get a lot of them.
Yeah.
And get back to representing the people. I mean, you can really be a party of the people right now. There's an opportunity here, a political opportunity that can be exploited. But I think Democrats are still slow to that party as well.
Yes. All right, we're switching gears to a really sad story. So let's do it. News recently broke in regard to Senator John McCain's health condition. If you guys can recall, he was in the hospital to remove a blood clot. And unfortunately, through that process, doctors learned that his condition was actually a lot more serious. So according to reports, the Mayo Clinic, where McCain is being treated, announced Wednesday night that doctors had discovered a form of brain cancer. It's known as glioblastoma, an aggressive brain cancer. McCain and his family are considering treatment options, which may include chemotherapy or radiation. So I listened to an interview with a doctor who's close to the situation, and he said that this is one of the most malignant forms of cancer, and it's not looking good. But we do know that John McCain is a fighter, and he has tweeted and thanked people for their support and just showed how much of a fighter he really is. He says, "I greatly appreciate the outpouring of support. Unfortunately, for my sparring partners in Congress, I'll be back soon, so stand by." So, look, you might not agree with everything John McCain has done. You might not agree with his voting record, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. He's a human being. He's a principled human being at that, and he has had some good moments that I'm proud of. Go ahead.
We were talking before the show started about McCain, and I don't think any of us are particular fans of his policies, but he did serve the country, and he was, as you know, at Hanoi Hilton, he was a prisoner of war. But more to the point, more to Anna's point, during his campaign for president, you'll recall that they had one of those big town hall meetings, and one of the women who was at the town hall stood up, elderly lady, and she said, this Barack Obama, he's un-American. I think she mentioned Muslim, but she was just throwing all these invectives out. And McCain shook his head no vigorously and waited for her to stop, and then took the microphone and said, no, Barack Obama is a fine American. I disagree with him on policy, but he's a fine American, and he wants to represent this country in the best way that he knows how. That is the grace and the honorable style of John McCain.
I miss that. I miss that. That level of civility, right? Instead of the constant mudslinging. And when I say he's principled, I really mean it, because he's not necessarily someone who just wants to be loyal to his party. I mean, he's called Trump out, he's called other Republicans out, he's disagreed with other Republicans very openly and transparently, and I have a lot of respect for that. Even if I don't agree with him on anything, on everything. There are some things I do agree with him on, believe it or not.
There are few things that I agree with him on.
Yeah.
He's never met a war he didn't like and all of that stuff, but I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a time where you know your heart breaks for him and his family.
Yeah.
And he is a man of honor and grace, and it is in very short supply right now in the political dialogue.
Absolutely. All right, I'm sorry to leave you guys with that sad story as we go to break, but we will be back. We'll read your TYT lives, and I'm going to tell you what the House is planning on doing to roll back even more environmental regulations. Stay tuned.
Hey, Jen, what's up?
Aaron, I forgot my email password. What is it?
PASSWORD.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys?
Okay. Not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bay.
Hashtag one black friend.
I'm thinking more rings.
I got him here.
You need more accessories. Way more accessories.
I don't know where to put it.
Come on, throw these on. Woke bay, not sleep bay.
More sexy too.
When's the last time you posted on Instagram? Too long. Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with? No. We need more accessories. We need.
This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't.
For your gay audience, man.
Yeah,
Come
the
on.
gays love you, man.
Okay. What else? What else do I need to do?
You haven't appropriated a culture in a week.
We have like a kimono or something.
Damn, that looks good on you, dude.
Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do we have any more?
I got 3 more.
Yeah, can we get more rings on this?
And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink.
Islam's role in terrorism and all the Huffington Post articles weren't doing well. I wasn't.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have?
Only like 100,000.
So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah, blah, blah social issue. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night.
Dab, dab.
Okay, I'll dab.
There you go.
More.
Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, be more into it.
Instagram is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it so many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. But it helps the brand.
We made you. We got you verified.
You're nothing
come
without
on.
us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here.
Dude, just take off that shirt.
That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
Hashtag woke bay.
Hashtag woke bay. Please follow me. Please.
guys, welcome back to TYT. I want to read a few TYT lives for you. Megan says, I don't agree with John McCain on most of his policy ideas, but he's one of the few Republicans I have respect for, any respect for. Yeah, I agree with you. You know, there's something about him that makes you respect him, even if you disagree. It's like this civil disagreement, which you don't get much of in politics.
I think we look at that as a breath of fresh air. There is no denying, and we'll say it again, and we said it before. I said he never met a war he didn't like, and I mean it. He's a warmonger. He has a shameful record on our involvement in Iraq and a shameful record in other places as well. Having said all of that and said it emphatically, my heart does break for a man who gets this diagnosis, and he has served the public as well as he has been able and as honorably as he feels he can.
Right.
So,
also, look. The tweets that we get are chosen by someone on our staff, and so I read my personal tweets every once in a while during the breaks, and I come across more critical tweets as a result of that. And someone was complaining that we talk about the Russia story. So I want to be absolutely clear to everyone who's watching. We will cover the Russia story and no one's gonna stop us. If you don't like the Russia story, if you don't think it's important, I'm sorry. We don't focus on it for the majority of our show, but we will cover it. And if that makes you uncomfortable, I don't know why. I don't know why that makes you uncomfortable. It's a huge story. So
it's funny that we get that. This is sort of what we were talking about, that people kind of put Russia all in the same category when it just revealed that the president and Putin had a private conversation for an hour. I mean, that's new information? Is that information that we shouldn't share? Is that information that we shouldn't remark on? I mean, the Russia story is changing. It's not just a one-note story.
Yeah, exactly. And all components of it are worth talking about, whether it's the DNC emails or these conflicts of interest or money laundering and all this shady stuff going. Really? You don't want to talk about that? You don't want to learn anything about that? Okay.
We just as a country have backed off of our backing of the rebels in Syria, and that is thought to be something that the Russians would have wanted us to do. We have backed away from our support for those rebels. Now, is that linked to the Russian story in some greater? I don't know. We really don't know yet. There's tough to get total clarity on that point. But again, in the biggest picture, these are important things that do change the Russian story day to day. So it's worth certainly visiting.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious where it's like, don't cover that story. Well, that's what we do for work. We cover stories that are important to talk about. So anyway, moving on. The EPA and members of Congress are fighting tooth and nail to deregulate any policy in regard to the environment. Now, that was one of the first things that Trump did as soon as he got inaugurated. It was very clear that they were not in favor of some of the environmental policy that President Obama had championed, but they're going even further. So I want to give you the details on that. So next month, the EPA is planning to make final delays to a handful of regulations that it plans to either revise or repeal. Standards for water pollution from power plants, methane pollution limits for landfills, and also methane limits for oil and gas drilling. Now, these are very friendly moves toward the oil and gas companies, and of course these oil and gas companies fund these politicians handsomely. And so in the Interior Department, the administration said it plans to publish formal proposals this month to repeal 2 contentious Obama rules. I don't know why they're contentious.
They're not.
Yeah, one is regulating fracking on federal land, and one regarding methane emissions from oil and gas drilling on federal land. The only people who feel like these regulations are contentious are the companies that are profiting off of polluting our environment. I think most American people understand the importance of protecting our environment unless they're working in these industries themselves. And so, look, it's sad news, and just when you think they're finally going to leave some of the regulations in place, maybe they go even further. So,
and these are protections for water and air and land that needs to be protected. So this is one of the most disturbing things about Donald Trump. When people talk about his legislative agenda not really being served and him not really getting a whole lot done as his administration gets to the 6-month mark and all this sort of thing, he's actually gotten a lot of stuff done this way through executive order, and he's taken aim on the environment because he's been able to do it quickly. And as Anna says, in service of all these huge companies that stand to gain so much. And by the way, these are not all American companies either, even if you just care about the bottom line. But as far as I'm concerned, our bottom line should be the land, the water, and the air. It desperately needs protection. This is not a partisan issue, but it has become a partisan issue. This should be bipartisan because that
because
water
we all
act,
drink that water. I don't know. We all breathe the air. We all, depend on the environment being safe and sound and healthy for us to live in.
That clean water rule, I think it affects 17 million, or maybe the number's 70 million Americans. I mean, it's as you say, it's a lot of people breathing that air and drinking that water. But again, the reason they went after it is because Obama's name is on it, and Trump wants to undo anything that has Obama's name on it. And it's sadly going to be the environment.
Yeah. All right. Finally, story that we typically do an hour or two, but it was just, we couldn't fit it in. So I wanted to make sure we talked about it today because it shows you just how far the injustice system will go. A Baltimore police officer is suspended and is also facing an investigation after he accidentally filmed himself planting drugs, or at least it appears that he's planting drugs. The investigation will determine whether or not he did so intentionally. So I want to show you guys the video very quickly. There's no sound, but you can kind of pay attention to him going to the scene of where he alleged to have found the drugs. So he walks away from the scene. This is after he planted the drugs. It was a baggie full of pills that had heroin.
Now he's turning it off.
Now he's turning it off.
On or something, yeah.
No, now he thinks he's turning it on.
Yeah,
So he didn't realize the camera was already on when he planted the drugs. Now he's going back to the scene where he planted the drugs to pretend like he found it.
Not here. No, not there. Where is it?
At least he takes a little bit of time to pretend like he, doesn't know where the drugs are.
He's done this before.
Yeah, right, exactly. He's rehearsed this.
And there it is. Bag of drugs.
So those were capsules that were filled with heroin. And luckily, he did get caught, and it's because of his own negligence. He didn't realize that he was filming himself planting the drugs. The public defender's office identified the officer handling the drugs in the video as Richard Pinero and complained that he was a witness in dozens of other active cases. And that's really, something that should concern everyone because there are a number of other cases where he claims to have, found contraband or found drugs or illicit things. And so these cases are now really going to be brought to question because of, his lack of credibility here.
And it hurts police work that's being done on the streets every day, right? And just as police violence hurts all the good cops. And in this particular instance, one officer's been suspended, 2 officers have been placed on administrative duty while they look at this. But boy, it's pretty clear what's going on here.
Right, so the 2 cops that were placed on administrative duty were the cops who were present as this was happening. And so if they were complicit in what happened, I think they should be suspended as well. I mean, that means that they're totally okay with this type. You are planting drugs, which will potentially ruin the life of an innocent person, right? And just so incredibly stupid, so stupid. And so, yeah, look, I hope that the investigation, tries to get to the bottom of what's going on. But the lawyer who's representing him is trying to make the case that maybe he didn't plant drugs. Maybe he was just trying to show, police work in action, like what it was like when he discovered that. What? That's not even a good defense, but I don't know. We'll see. They're going to do the investigation and
They're throwing up everything against the wall and see what sticks for sure when they come up with that one.
Right.
So this tactic is age old, as I assume everyone would know. Comedians talk about it in joking ways, like, oh, the police dropped some drugs and it's, sprinkle some crack on them, as Dave Chappelle said years ago. And it was just ha funny, but it's been happening for so long. And then people are supposed to be pacified by, oh, we're gonna give body cameras and an accountability. And after we do that, police are gonna we're gonna see everything that they're really doing. And as we see, even in manipulating the body camera footage, you then go, I think I turned it off. So the way, I don't know if you explained it fully, the way it works with, he thought it was off.
Yes, he did.
Because he turned it off, but there's apparently a 30-second buffer where it records what happened 30 seconds before or keeps a loop. So when you turn it back on, it still kept the 30 seconds previous. So it kept what he did. I don't know why there's buttons on the body cam footage that's supposed to make sure that there's accountability if they can just turn it off and on.
Agree.
With every other case, they go, oh, our dash camera's off, our body camera's off, but someone ended up dead. I don't know how it happened.
Look,
This is how it happens.
I agree with you. I agree with. Look, I agree that when you give them the ability to turn them on and off, like, of course, you're gonna have instances of abuse. But someone actually, a columnist, brought up a really, really great point about body cameras. And I think the reason why it's important to have that feature is because let's say a woman has just, or anyone has just been sexually assaulted or abused in any way, and they don't want to be on camera, right? They call the cops and they feel uncomfortable being on camera. And so I think having that option is important and it's good, but I think that there should be heavy scrutiny when there's a cop-related shooting of an unarmed person and oh, what a coinky dink. The dash camera wasn't working, or the dash cam wasn't working and my body cam wasn't working either. I mean, that seems very
to be
suspicious.
Feeling better about this. I remember what happened on this show. Jank and I were talking about how, okay, well, at least there's gonna be this accountability. I feel better. People who know how these things happen know that we weren't gonna feel better about this. It's just, there's too much evidence and too much previous bad intent that's built up for people to believe that it's not gonna happen the way we're seeing it happen. But even after we see it happen, we're still gonna go, well, it was just him. What about the other two cops standing there? Didn't look very startling to them. Sure. You didn't see one of their hand gestures go, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop,
like, dude,
that didn't happen.
Whoa, yeah.
The dozens of other cases he's been on, how many other cops have watched this? It's no such thing as a couple of bad apples. I'm gonna just put it out there. For them to keep seeing this happen and go, oh, well, it's just body cam footage, he can turn it off and on. Why give him that option? It's disgusting.
I am also tortured by the sexual abuse part of the body cam situation, but having said that, and I'll get to maybe a solution for that in a second, I think it's got to be on all the time. And by the way, it could be an innocent thing, that they forget to turn the body cam on. I mean, so it's not always that they're up to something nefarious. And I'm wondering, in the case of a sexual abuse situation, where they can call in, or quickly, the way you get they can get a warrant over the phone or over the radio really quickly, and they could get some kind of special approval to turn the camera off. I think that's the category that has to fall into. It's too valuable, I think, and I know, JR, that it's going on all the time, but this body cam does represent at least a chance to keep cops honest, and also to help cops out in situations where they say, no. The guy was charging at me, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I know. I think, if you are a cop with good intentions, and there are plenty of them out there, I mean, having that evidence on you to prove that you didn't do anything nefarious is important. So, but I do really quickly want to touch on what you said, JR, because again, I totally agree with you. It's not just the cop that was planning the drugs. It was also the two cops with him who were just totally okay with what was going on. They are on administrative leave or whatever, right? Or administrative duty. They haven't even been suspended. And so that kind of sends the message that they're probably not gonna face any serious consequences for this, and I think they should. You're messing with innocent people's lives, especially in this crazy culture where drug use is criminalized and we have these insane draconian, sentences for drug abusers. Like, it's insane. And even
if you look at it as, well, they're not an innocent person. They're trying to, they planted this to tag another guy who was a known drug dealer. I get it, but tag him with the stuff that is actual evidence against him.
Do real investigative work and catch him doing something illegal. I mean, the case, by the way, this was totally counterproductive because the case has been completely dropped against the person that they're planting the evidence against, and it should be.
Right.
It should be. You can't plant evidence. All right, we gotta go take a break, but we will be back with hour 2. Brett Ehrlich will join us, and you don't want to miss it. Michelle Bachmann is back, and she is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
The Bach is back.
Oh God, you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. All right, so tweet to us using the hashtag TYTLive, and we will be back in just a few.
What did are we recording this?
Oh my God, it's 4:20. We'll be right back.
Please stand by.
A few minutes later, a little longer than a few minutes later, one eternity later.
All right, back on 420 old school. It's begun already, dude. It's begun. Okay, so during that break, there's some chance we did something.
2 days on time. You never walked into a factory, they always have about how many days without an accident? 2.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, I want to do a YouTube live clip, but not live. Go.
I want to do a quick announcement before we get onto the stories because I think it's important and I want to encourage you guys to go. All right, so TYT will be at Politicon this year. The dates are July 29th and the 30th. And I'm actually extremely excited. In the past, when I've done Politicon events, it's always been panels. Last year I did that panel with a number of anti-Bernie Sanders people. And of course, it was a lot of fun because I was the only one on there that supported Bernie. But this year, we're gonna be debating people. Debates are gonna happen.
Can I just say, if you missed Politicon last year, that was a mistake. Because Anna's panel alone was worth the price of admission because they love balance. They love talking to the press about balance, right? But all of a sudden, there was only one Bernie Sanders supporter and wall-to-wall Hillary Clinton supporters.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Including a lot of the people you see on TV. And she mauled. The entire crowd was on your side. But look, it's not just that you kicked ass. It's not that just the crowd was on your side. It's that if the crowd, even if like it's unfair because the crowd is all Bernie Sanders, then maybe you should have a couple of Bernie Sanders panelists, right?
Right.
But they didn't need it because they had Anna.
Well, and it was a fun discussion and I really enjoyed it. But this year is also gonna be a lot of fun. We're going to get involved in a number of debates. Cenk, who are you debating?
Oh boy, here we go. Buckle up, everybody. You asked for it, you're gonna get it. Ben Shapiro. Okay.
Bloop, 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 bloop. All right.
Right-wingers have been asking for quite some time. Come and see.
All right, and I will be debating Ann Coulter.
Damn.
Ann versus Anna. Anna versus Ann. It's gonna be fun. I can't wait. And Hassan will also be there, and he is also debating someone who is a millennial who is very much against millennials. Like that's his whole shtick. So that should be a lot of fun as well.
That ought to be great. Woke Bay versus Sleepy Bay.
Anyway, you guys can get your tickets by going to politicon.com/TYT. Politicon.com/TYT. It takes place in Pasadena, California. We really hope to see you guys there, so definitely check it out.
And if you're watching this as a video on YouTube or Facebook, we'll have the link down below for you guys.
Welcome back to TYT. Anna, Mark Thompson, and Brett Ehrlich with you. Brett joins us. He was on the second hour with me yesterday, and it was awesome.
It was a really fun second hour.
It was.
Then I wore that sweater home. All the way to the house. Usually I take it off in the car and leave it there, which is why I always wear it. But I left it at home today. Then I got here and they asked me to join the second hour. So this is all I've got.
At least you got the hat today.
Yes. If otherwise, it would be really, really bad.
Well, I like that you're mixing and matching.
There you go.
The hat and the sweater, those are your two favorite articles of clothing. And then, you decided to shake things up a little bit.
I'm gonna be cold, but they tell you to stay cold in the studio.
I didn't realize so much thought went into your look. It's really.
He talks about his look more than I do.
I don't necessarily see that level of reflection in your look, but it's nice.
Right, yeah, you're right. It doesn't look like anyone put a single thought into it.
But that's the magic of it, that you put that much thought into that which doesn't look like any thought went into it. All right.
Should be.
All right, guys, a few TYT lives for you. Captain Jinglepants says, why get rid of the war on drugs when this is how they bust people they don't like? Flip off a cop, suddenly you're a drug dealer.
Right, that's what you were saying.
I mean, I forget the name of the documentary. It came out several years ago, actually. The House I Live In, maybe? But it was about the war on drugs and why we outlawed specific drugs like opium and marijuana. It was to target certain demographics that we wanted to either deport or lock away. And so that's what the war on drugs is really about. I mean, it's been failing for so long, and why would lawmakers still support it? There's really no reason other than, questionable reasons. All right, also Beth Haven says, release of OJ depresses me. Drumpf and OJ running free while youngsters are slave-bound working for free. USA hit a new low, it seems. Well, I'm happy you brought the OJ Simpson story up because we are gonna talk about it. So I feel like you have a lot to say on that story, Mark.
On OJ Simpson?
Yeah.
I think I have a couple of thoughts. One is that we have, of course, carried into this OJ parole thing everything from the murders that he was acquitted of, wrongly acquitted of. I mean, he clearly cut the heads off two people, right? And we all know that. And so now we want the parole board to do the business that a jury couldn't do. Only they're not reviewing him for that reason. So
You're saying too much.
I am.
All right, so let me set the story up for you guys in case you don't know the details. OJ Simpson has been, OJ Simpson was up for parole, and today was the day that he had his parole hearing. And so the news today is that he not only had his hearing, but the board has voted unanimously to grant him parole. And as a result, he could be released as early as the beginning of October of this year. Now, I want to show you video of his parole hearing and some of his justifications for what happened or what he did and how he reacted. But understand that he is not in prison right now because of the Nicole Kidman case.
Nicole Simpson. Right.
I'm sorry,
Nicole Brown Simpson.
Nicole Brown Simpson.
Or the Nicole Kidman case. That is also a separate case.
No. Nicole Kidman is not involved in this in any way, shape, or form. I apologize. I don't know why I have her on my mind.
Even though justice should have its eyes wide shut.
Right.
Anyway, so the reason why he's in prison is because he was convicted of armed robbery, and that happened in Las Vegas 8 years ago. All right, that's the context. Let's take a look at video from his parole hearing.
Mr. Simpson, before I cast my vote, I want to let you know that we believe that we're a fair board. We believe that we're a consistent board. I will let you know that consistency also goes to parole. And we do not look kindly upon parole violations. And if I cast my vote to grant and it concludes the hearing, our expectation would be that you not violate even the simplest condition of parole. Having said that, I am prepared to cast a vote. I am prepared to ask the commissioners to set conditions. If that happens, we will produce an order sometime in the next 15 to 20 minutes that will be faxed to you or presented to you at the institution, and it will become a public record. So based on all of that, Mr. Simpson, I do vote to grant parole when eligible, and that will conclude this hearing.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, so during the hearing, he also talked about the robbery itself, and he said that the two memorabilia dealers that he decided to target didn't, they had stolen that merchandise or that material from him. It was rightfully his, and as a result, it was the reason why he decided to pull out a gun and threaten them and essentially rob them at gunpoint. But it's interesting because he had good behavior apparently behind bars, and so they had already cut down his sentence. But then, since he was up for parole, he decided to move forward with this hearing, and they have unanimously decided to let him go.
The hearing went on for a while, and my favorite line from the hearing, there are two of them, but here's my favorite. O.J. Simpson said, "I believe in the jury system." Yeah, no effing you believe in the jury system. And the other was, he said, "No one has ever accused me of pulling a weapon of any kind on anyone."
No one has ever accused him.
Except for those two people you hacked up that night with those knives? I mean, the truth is that, look, the one striking thing, I watched it, and you almost feel guilty for watching it because you feel like you're part of the circus, and I guess I was. I mean, I was drawn in a voyeuristic way. But he had a certain arrogance to him through the entire process, when talking about, for example, the effect of alcohol on his actions that night, and just in general, and his handling of, had he taken any courses while he was in, because they recommend certain courses,
right.
And he hadn't taken the alcohol course, and he sort of said, "I don't really have a problem with alcohol." So, look, there's a lot going on here, but at the end of it all, it's just, he probably served longer than he should have for that crime, and he didn't serve at all for the crime he should have served for.
Yeah, and so you can't ask this, you can't ask this board to make a decision about a crime that they're not discussing. They're specifically talking about this robbery.
And they explicitly mentioned that aspect of it during the hearing. They said, we got a lot of letters from people on both sides saying that we both do take into consideration his previous accusations, both the criminal case where he was acquitted and the civil case with the Goldmans where he was forced to pay damages. But they said we could not take that in consideration. And that's where I find myself is, and a majority of Americans, literally according to USA Today, feel that he should be held responsible because a majority of Americans believe that he is guilty of the murders of Nicole Brown and Rob Goldman. And they think that he should go to jail more in Nevada because of that case. But that's just, you can't do that. What I found striking is, of the 4 panelists that were making these decisions, one was wearing a football tie.
Really?
I didn't see that.
He is wearing a Kansas City Chiefs tie. Now, OJ played for the SC Trojans in college, and then he played for the Niners and the Bills. So he didn't play for the Chiefs, as far as I know. But just the idea, like, why would you decide to wear a football tie?
That's a really bad idea.
I just picture him looking through like Argyle, stripes, polka dots. But today's OJ day, I have the football tie. That is happening, and it's either a message like I'm with you football-wise, or like I'm not with your team. It's just so weird to me. And there are moments during it where he, during the hearing, says, "I have not made an excuse the whole time."
But
but all the questions, the answers that you want to hear, that I think seem obvious to me as to what you would say even if you don't mean it, is, I should never have done that. And he did say along the way, I wish it didn't happen. I take full responsibility. But then when the rubber really hits the road, is he supposed to demonstrate that he has the healthy approach to this, that the criminal system seeks to, the prison system seeks to make you rehabilitate toward? Is he just kind of says, I wish Riccio never called me. He's not saying, I wish I didn't go along. He's not saying, I wish I didn't do this. It's, I wish that person didn't make me do it. And it doesn't, it's that extra thing where, like, if you ask someone, do they feel remorse? They should say, listen, it was my fault. And he does say stuff like that. But then he he gets emotionally charged.
He contradicts himself a lot, and that was what I noticed. And I watched it as well, but I didn't necessarily feel guilty about it. I just thought it was interesting to see, whether or not his personality has changed from, doing some hard time. And to be quite honest with you, it didn't seem like it. There was some joking going around. He talked about how if he were able to, get released early, he'd go live in Florida because he doesn't think that they want him in Nevada.
Right, he made that joke.
He made that joke, and everyone was like, haha, like they start laughing, and I'm like, this is kind of serious, guys.
And
I get it.
I don't know how much hard time he's doing either, because if you talk to people in the joint, I mean, that's what we call it.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah,
the joint. The joint.
They will tell you that he is a rock star there. They take pictures with him, and the guards want autographs, and all of that stuff goes down. So I feel as though, look, it's not a party to be, to have to coach the prison basketball team every day, but as prisons go, that's a better thing to have to do than,
I will say though, I saw it in his eyes when they're waiting. She took her time, as you saw, to say, if I do cast my vote, talk, and you saw him just, the 9 years are really on his shoulders. And I don't, and of course he would want to not be in prison for 9 years. This is the system, sure. When I heard that he was out, I was like, okay, all right, he's out of prison.
Yeah.
He went in and tried to steal back stuff. And when they talk about the actual articles that were stolen, he said that a California court had found that was his property.
Yeah.
So he thinks, but the weird thing is how he processes it in his mind to this day. And I could see over 9 years, you would get more and more frustrated, not less and less frustrated, with the idea that nags in the back of his mind, like, yes, the people I was with did have guns to take this back, but we're stealing back my stuff.
Yeah, look, I get it,
So
but you can't.
Fine.
You can't brandish a weapon. You can't threaten someone with a
He says he
weapon.
didn't.
Like there are, and I know he says he didn't, but there were guns involved.
Yeah,
Whether he was carrying it or not, like there were guns involved, and so you can't do that, and that's the reason why they ended up finding him guilty. But I like that you brought that up because that plays into the contradictions. I take personal responsibility / but it was my stuff, so you know what I mean?
And I didn't have the gun. Those other guys had a gun. I didn't call for them to have it. They told me to bring security that day. I didn't even want security. I don't have security at anything. It was the first time I ever had security. So yeah, it was the non-apology apology.
Exactly.
I just guess the question on all of our minds is how long until he's president?
Oh my God, please, how long before I slip my wrist? I don't
know.
know.
Oh, come on.
Well, he can't be for a technical reason.
I used to.
What is the technical reason?
Yeah.
He's a felon.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's.
Will he be able to vote? He might not even.
I don't know. I don't know. I know there's things like he can't associate with felons, and he's subject to random search whenever. They did outline a good number of restrictions on his freedom as a parolee. So I don't know. He's going to be in Florida. We'll see.
We'll see. All right, moving on to some other news.
If he's in Florida, though, he will just incidentally hang out with felons.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's a lot of it.
You know?
I know what you mean.
Just at
we have
Publix.
a story out of Florida later on in an hour or two. I really want to get to it.
Okay. There are also good people in Florida. Hi, Florida.
My husband's
just
from Florida.
kidding.
They just don't make news.
My
That's the
fiance's
problem
from
with you guys.
Florida. Yeah, I was joking.
All right. Earlier this week, news broke of a tragic police-related shooting involving an Australian woman who had called the cops to report a possible sexual assault in the alley behind her home. Now, unfortunately, when police arrived to the scene and she approached their car, the cop in the passenger side of that car shot and killed her. And the only thing that we know so far is that the police officer who was driving talked to investigators and said that they heard a noise that startled them, which is why he opened fire. Now, I give you that context because the commentary involving this story is different from the commentary that we typically see in police-related shootings or police-involved shootings. The cop in this case who opened fire is a Muslim. And all of a sudden, conservatives who are very pro-police are speaking out against this cop because he's Muslim. Case in point, Michelle Bachmann. She was at a gubernatorial event in Minnesota, and she gave a 45-minute rambling speech And during these 45 minutes, she wanted to touch on the story involving this shooting. Here's what she had to say.
There was concerns in St. Cloud. St. Cloud now has about 16% Somali of the entire St. Cloud population. People were concerned in the St. Cloud area about how their area was changing. When Governor Dayton went to St. Cloud, his response was, if you don't like it, then you can leave. That's what he said to native-born Minnesotans. This isn't about being mean to Muslims. This isn't about being afraid of people with a different skin color. This is about Minnesotans who are saying the state is changing.
All right, so I'm setting this up for you guys. She kind of starts off by saying that, there's an issue in Minnesota. More and more Somali Muslims are moving in and people are really concerned about their safety and well-being. Then she gets to the cop shooting that I mentioned earlier. Take a look.
That's what I saw in Congress. That's what I see in Minnesota. Too many people who are being afraid of being called racist, bigots, Islamophobes. I'm not afraid of it. Because what we have to do is talk about the truth of the problems that are going on in Minnesota. Look at Saturday night. Look what happened Saturday night in this state. We had a man, Mohammed Noor, who was an affirmative action hire by the hijab-wearing mayor of Minneapolis, Betsy Hodges. We don't know exactly what happened. We don't know. All we know is that a beautiful 40-year-old Australian woman thought she heard a sexual assault ongoing in the alley behind her home at Washburn and 51st Street in Minneapolis. So she called 911. She was a brave woman. She called 911. And what we know from the news reports is that she ended up out in the alley. She was wearing her pajamas. So now just think of this. 911 got a phone call of a possible sexual assault. A woman comes up to the driver's side of a police car in her pajamas. You would think that the response of the police officers would be to protect the woman who was coming up to the side of the car. She had no gun. She had no weapon of any kind. Instead, Mohammed Noor, we know, unholstered himself, pulled out his gun, violating protocol, reached across the chest of his partner riding in the car and shot the woman through the window in her abdomen, killing her. I'm not condemning this police officer because I don't know. But I do know in that culture, the women are covered from head to toe. And a woman in her pajamas standing out in the alleyway, we don't know again why it happened. But what I'm wondering is this. Will the question that the BCA is conducting, will they ask cultural questions? What was the motivation? You see, in Minnesota, we have been marinated in political correctness so long, we dare not even allow ourselves to think about cultural questions. We're constantly condemned that we're guilty of white privilege and we're supposed to go through shaming classes because of our background and our heritage for Western civilization. That's again where I say kudos to President Donald Trump. If you haven't listened to his speech in Warsaw, Poland, listen to his speech. He asked the right question. He said, will the West have the will to survive?
I can't with her.
What?
I like just
let the war begin.
There's just so much to comment on. First of all, I love how she's like, we really gotta ask these investigators, are they willing to ask, the cultural questions? Okay, so is it all right for us to ask the cultural questions of white police officers who shoot and kill unarmed black individuals who are literally running away from them, not running toward them? Is it okay if we ask those cultural questions? Is it okay if we ask cultural questions about police officers who decide to shoot and kill 12-year-olds who are playing with toy guns within 2 seconds of arriving on the scene? No, we're not allowed to ask those questions. Those questions are uncalled for, right? But, it happens to be one time where a Muslim cop shoots and kills someone who, by the way, should not be a cop, who should be condemned, who should not be in that position at all because he obviously is not fit to be a cop, right? And he should be criticized. But instead of talking about, oh, this is an ongoing trend among cops throughout the country where unarmed people are shot and killed because they're overly paranoid. They heard a noise, got startled, he opened fire immediately, right? That's the issue. It's not because she showed up in her pajamas, she's just literally pulling this out of her ass, right? She knows nothing. A lot of us know nothing. She didn't get shot and killed because she was wearing pajamas. She got shot and killed because we have a problem with training police in the country. It's something that we've been arguing about and talking about nonstop for several years now. But we can't ask cultural questions of white cops.
Well, like, she might also have been killed because this guy had a mental problem. She might also have been killed for a number of reasons. The priority should be, are we gonna find out what happened?
Right.
We do not need to drag it through this like he's a Muslim. Just listen to yourself.
It's like literally the first time conservatives are criticizing cops, but they're not criticizing cops. They're criticizing one cop because he happens to be Muslim.
But when she throws in the hijab wearing mayor, I mean, that kind of, she puts almost too fine a point on it.
I mean, head to hoe, from head to hoe, hashtag from head to hoe. Hashtag head to hoe. I don't even know what that means. I also can't take serious someone when in a sentence when they use the word pajamas.
There used to be a news outlet called Pajamas Media.
Really?
Yeah, they might
so
still
weird.
exist.
Also, how could he see she was wearing pajamas if she was like through a door?
It was
and a window,
11:30 at night.
and it was late at night.
Yes.
So that's the stuff. And then she says people who are afraid to be called racist.
I'm not afraid to be called racist. We know.
It's like that. Who cares what you're called? You're being super racist when you're saying
xenophobic.
An
yeah.
affirmative action hire by the hijab wearing mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, and why? Because it reveals that when you see her hijab, the tone of voice you're using, the way you're using it, the obvious reasons you're using it is because when you take that, you make a bunch of assumptions about her that are all negative. And you're making generalizations in a negative light, that's racism.
And the thing that frustrates me about this whole situation is now you're setting a tone or setting people up to defend the cop, right? What the cop did was wrong. The cop murdered someone. The cop murdered an innocent, unarmed person, okay? Don't create a situation where people now have sympathy for what happened or for him. Like, he should face consequences for what occurred. But she immediately, and it's funny because Cenk and I jokingly mentioned, people are probably gonna handle this story differently or comment on this story differently because it's a Muslim cop. But I didn't really think that was what was gonna happen. And it happened. It happened. I guess I'm incredibly naive.
Yeah.
No, it is weird. It seems so clear cut, but to bring the whole, to use it as a platform to bring in the race argument and that this religious integration of our community has to be looked at in some new way because you see what it's leading to. It's a wild pivot, man, and she made it. It's crazy. The cops are too scared. They're driving around scared. And by the way, the media makes them even more scared, right? We elevate everything to the level of every stop is going to lead to violence potentially, and they carry that with them, and it echoes in their mind. Anyway, on this point, it's a crazy pivot she made. Crazy.
Yeah.
She said it might have been a quote cultural seizure he had. Is that like epilepsy? Like I don't know what medical condition cultural seizures are.
That's what happens when I see a Cuban dude.
Like, yeah, you have a cultural seizure. And then this is a really great one where she says she talks about Trump and the vice presidents. She describes them as regular guys who don't mind being called racist. I just don't get that. The whole, she's trying to glom onto this, and this is like, they're regular guys because they say racist stuff. Like they're all that scene from Gran Torino. Like they're all kind of walking around being like, it's cool. And trying to use racist statements as making you a regular person. So they are trying to normalize racism.
They want to wear it as like a badge of honor. You know what I mean? And it's super interesting because she also talks about white privilege, and you can tell when that phrase is used, it really gets under her skin. And so it's interesting to see how she can say like, oh, people are obsessed with political correctness. They get offended so easily, and then you just say white privilege, and her head explodes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I'm white. The phrase white privilege doesn't make me feel bad about myself, right? It makes me recognize an actual issue, and it doesn't take anything away from me. It doesn't mean that I haven't achieved anything on my own. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just like this fundamental misunderstanding of what that phrase means, and anyway, drives you crazy. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, more news for you that you don't want to miss, I promise, including, let's see. Oh, you guys printed out the sex robot story, but we're not doing that today.
Oh my God, that's the only reason I came in. Is it cool if I take my mic off now and go home?
All right, just come back. Maybe we'll do the sex robot story. Maybe.
We'll have a real life sex robot in the studio tonight at 11.
All right.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
Love you.
Robbie Canal, he calls his work urban beautification.
I didn't go out to be a street artist or to make posters. I was just compelled to do it. I was mad enough it didn't matter. It was like a form of minor civil disobedience even. You're like, fuck you. How about your higher crime? Power operates to self-replicate itself to maintain the status quo so it stays in power. When you go to do something like this to express yourself in public about an issue you care about, make sure you pick a bigger weapon, and the weapon is knowledge. The one thing about street art, it's not like I put up my posters to change anybody's mind about anything. The difference between propaganda and the kind of art I do is propaganda is telling people what to think. The way the art works, where the art works, is between the time you see it and the time you figure it out for yourself. I'm an optimist. I might have made a lot of ugly paintings about a lot of ugly people, but it's out of love, not for them.
gentleman who goes by Woke Poppy watching the show. And Woke Poppy is indeed woke because his tweet is just, it's too good. It's too good. It's lit, as some would say. He says, OJ gave us the Kardashians, put that man back in jail for some crime against America, for that crime against America.
Does he get back end on the Kardashian show? No pun intended.
I don't know, but I did read about how he's not going to be hurting for money because of his pensions and investments prior to being imprisoned.
Yeah, his pension was $25,000 a month, and it was just accruing while he was in the joint, which is what they call it.
Do they?
Behind.
Hang on, let me write that down.
Yeah, the prison. And so he's got, I think, $2.5 million in pension money waiting for him in one lump sum. Then
$25,000 a month.
Yeah.
What do you do with all that money?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Because it's weird, because that's what I get paid here.
Oh, if I found out you got paid $25,000 a month, like heads would roll. Like I would.
What? I thought we were friends.
No.
Wouldn't you be happy for me?
If anyone was making $25,000 a month here, heads would roll.
Yeah,
like,
I can't even fathom.
I'm sure someone is, and I don't want to find. Please don't tell me. Make sure I don't find out. That's when things get really bad. All right, member shout outs. Tamati Fitzpatrick and Charlie De La Cruz. Thank you so much for being members, guys. You help keep our show independent, and you are the backbone of TYT. So you deserve the shout out. You deserve much more, and we will have a post game show today. Are you guys all staying?
Yeah.
Post game?
Sure.
Yeah, can I don't know, first of all, that answer. Depends. We're gonna talk about shoulders. So
Call back to yesterday.
Just there was also with the tweet, some people were saying, why is Michelle Bachmann relevant? Where'd this come from? Part of that whole long thing, I listened to other parts of it. She says she just got back from the White House because she still has meetings with Trump and Pence because she's an evangelical advisor to the president. So whatever that means just means she has access still. So she has a level of relevancy. He's probably not listening to her because he doesn't give a shit about anything evangelical. Let's make sure we remember that. But she has access. Just to know, that crazy person is still going to the White House.
But she echoes every part of that very Bannon sounding agenda and messaging that he mentioned in Poland, for sure. Yeah. Ugh, that's who he needs as part of his voting bloc.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to what's happening in Texas. Lawmakers in Texas have been relentless in regard to dismantling reproductive rights in the state. And if you can recall, earlier this week, we covered a story involving the teen abortion rate in Texas and how it has actually increased because of some of the anti-reproductive rights policies that they've passed. Many clinics have shut down, and those clinics were providing contraceptives and family planning to young people and pretty much a lot of women throughout the state. And since they've been shut down, women don't have access. And so the unwanted pregnancy rate does go up. Well, lawmakers in Texas have decided that they will combat that by essentially making abortion illegal. So this new legislation that's been proposed would make providing an abortion illegal except in a small number of very specific circumstances. These include cases in which the abortion is necessary to prevent the death of the mother, or she is facing imminent severe irreversible brain damage or imminent severe irreversible paralysis. The same is true if the fetus is not likely to survive, has a serious abnormality. There could be exceptions made in those cases. However, if the pregnancy could lead to significant psychological harm to the mother, that would not be considered one of the exceptions. So what the lawmakers would do is essentially take a medical professional's license away if he or she performs an abortion in any case, unless it's under one of these very specific circumstances, okay? So notably, the bill explicitly states that performing an abortion due to any substantial risk to the psychological condition of the mother is prohibited. Also, keep in mind that the governor has been extremely counterproductive in the state. There was a bipartisan effort that was actually awesome that he decided to veto. The governor vetoed a bill that would have maintained Texas's Women's Health Advisory Committee, which had bipartisan support, and helped low-income women access reproductive care that would help prevent the need for abortion services.
That's the key. What Anna just said is the key. They are taking away reproductive education. They're taking away low-cost contraception. They're taking away the ways that prevent abortion before a woman is even pregnant. and then they are forcing, in essence, the pregnancy on a societal level to happen, and then they're forcing women now to have those babies, and more to the point, they're taking away a woman's right to choose. So you're taking away that reproductive education, and then you're taking away the control a woman has over her own body.
And also keep in mind that Texas has passed legislation that was considered unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. And I'm specifically talking about anti-reproductive rights legislation.
About abortion clinics and what they had to have.
Exactly, like the hospital admitting privileges, for instance.
Right.
The Supreme Court struck that down, said it was unconstitutional.
Right, because they wouldn't grant admitting privileges to anyone who performed an abortion. So already you're making abortion illegal.
Exactly, but one thing to keep in mind is that lawmakers are now emboldened by the fact that Neil Gorsuch is a Supreme Court justice. And so if a case like this makes it all the way to the Supreme Court, which it likely would if it was passed as law in the state, there is some possibility that he would side with these lawmakers. And that's why a lot of people are really concerned about what's going on right now.
The loophole, some have written that the loophole is because Roe versus Wade allows certain situations in which states can limit the amount of abortion, albeit not in the first trimester. They're trying to find every little bit that they can, because as it stands now, the law's not on the side of these initiatives, as proven by the Supreme Court case as recently as 2016, and just the legacy of Roe versus Wade. It's not on their side, so they're doing everything they can possible to get it at the edges, to undercut little elements of it every way that they can. And it just, I understand, I respect any initiative to change the world. They're trying to change the world, but the things that they're trying to change about the world are unchangeable. The facts remain that if you take away education about preventative, contraceptive education, if you get rid of that, it increases pregnancy rates.
Yeah.
And if you increase pregnancy rates, it increases the number of abortions.
That's right. That's literally what's happening in the state right now.
The main solve here, the thing that everyone agrees with you on, is people don't want to increase the number of abortions. We mentioned yesterday, there was one quote where someone involved in a lawsuit said that these anti-lifers are so in love with abortion that no one's in love with abortion. Everyone wants to limit them as much as possible. No one wants to be involved in it. That's like the last case scenario, worst case scenario, final option. But what they're doing is denying the fact that if you educate people, they'll know more. And that's all we need to do. Everyone wants to educate them, allow these practices. There's this new bill that they're trying to get through in Wisconsin that I read about, where they're trying to prevent state-funded universities from teaching their intern doctors abortion practices.
I can't.
Like about the procedure, just teaching them that the procedure exists. It's all these little tiny things they're trying to do, when already not a dollar of federal funding goes to abortions.
Right, there's the Hyde Amendment, which prevents taxpayer money going toward abortions unless it's a very, very, very rare circumstance. The woman's been raped, or her life is in jeopardy. Those are the very few instances where some taxpayer money can be used to cover some portion of an abortion. But one other thing I wanted to mention, because it's not just public money that they target, they're also targeting private money. So in this legislation that was just proposed in Texas, they're also trying to ban private insurance companies from covering abortion services in the state. Okay, just think about that for a second. So you pay your premiums for your health insurance, and they're getting in between you and your health insurance company and essentially telling you and telling those private insurers you can't cover abortion. Why? Why? You're really gonna tell them what they can and can't cover? Isn't it their business?
Yeah, this is the party that wants government out of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so inventive about the ways that they've tried to restrict abortion in the state of Texas and others, but Texas has really been their cutting edge. And as you say, they've talked about the clinics and certain restrictions on the clinic. They have to have hospital width hallways and all these things that would make it impossible for an abortion clinic. I mean, little stuff like that. You think, well, that's such a minuscule thing, but it prevents an abortion clinic from staying open. So with them closing, women in Texas are having to go farther and farther and farther to get it, to exercise that right. And as you say, it's a grim right that they're exercising. That's not an excited drive they're making to, oh boy, let's go, this is a very difficult and emotional procedure.
It is.
So it's the saddest news from a party that supposedly wants to stay out of our lives.
All right, moving on to other news. Martin Shkreli's trial continues. This is the notorious pharma bro who decided to increase the price of a drug from something affordable, around $13 a pill, to $750 a pill. And so that's how he got his claim to fame. But he is facing trial for something completely different. And in the middle of this trial, someone who has testified against him, his former hedge fund manager, shared a letter that Shkreli had mailed to him, addressed to his wife, and it shows you just how incredibly disgusting this guy really is. So in this letter, which again was addressed to the hedge fund manager's wife, Shkreli wrote, "I hope to see you and your 4 children homeless. I will do whatever I can to assure this. Your husband's arrogance is infuriating, and making an enemy out of me is a mistake." Okay, so a threatening message, obviously, and just a disgusting message. Who gets excited at the thought of seeing children homeless? I guess Martin Shkreli does. But just to give you some background on this case, he is being prosecuted because of his businesses. Prosecutors contend that Mr. Shkreli funneled shares of Retrofin to his hedge fund manager, that's Mr. Pirati, and others, keeping the allotments just under the threshold for reporting requirements, and controlled huge parts of Retrofin through the scheme without reporting that to financial regulators. So what he did is he urged people around him to buy shares and then sell them and then buy them. So he was trying to manipulate the market. And in December of 2012, Mr. Shkreli arranged for Mr. Pirati to be part of a group buying stakes in Retrofin, which was about to go public through a reverse merger into a shell company. Mr. Pirati agreed to pay $400 for 400,000 shares, he testified. Now, why would Shkreli send him that threatening message? Well, at one point, Shkreli told him, "You need to sell me back the shares, sell me back the shares," and apparently he refused to do so. And eventually he just let go and he's like, "Fine, I'll share you back, I'll sell back the shares." But I mean, you're manipulating, you're manipulating things, you're doing something illegal, you're sending someone a threatening letter, and now that threatening letter is being used as evidence against him in this case.
Yeah, I saw one of the most aggravating videos you could watch. It was a Vice video where a Vice reporter goes and hangs out with Martin Shkreli and plays chess at his house. And it's just the most aggravating thing. And after watching it, you kind of understand that the personality of Martin Shkreli is such that he doesn't know how to get people to like him. He doesn't know how to do that.
I don't think he cares.
I think he absolutely cares more than anyone has ever cared about being liked. And he can figure out how to make a lot of money off the stock market, make a lot of money over price gouging, and get financial gain. But the one thing that he does not know how to do is make people like him, which is compounded in its terribleness by the fact that the other thing he knows how to do besides make money is to get people to hate him. He doesn't know how to get the positive reinforcement. He only knows what to do to push people's buttons. And so every time an idea on how to do that reaches his brain, he goes right for it. He knows how to be the biggest douchebag in the universe.
So when you were watching the chess thing, what kind of thing struck you?
Okay, so he sits back and he goes, let's open a magnum bottle of 2005 Chateau Rousseau.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't know what whatever the Chateau was, but then he sits down and he starts drinking it. Yeah, it's a bottle of wine. And she makes a move and he goes, "So do you do the Spanish defense very often? Is that what you typically do when you play chess?" And she's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And he goes, and then he finds a way to be like, "Yeah, because okay, it's very obvious that I thought you were doing it, but it's just obvious you know so little about chess. You're not a good chess player." Just like instantly little tiny things like that.
How did she react to that?
She's an idiot. She's a Vice reporter.
Oh, come on.
Come on. He goes off when they're walking down the street. He's like, I really like to gouge the prices. And he said something also like, that's Pfizer. They do unethical stuff when it comes to price gouging all the time. And instead of at least pointing out the insane irony in that like a Daily Show reporter would just be like, so do you know anyone else like that? Instead, she goes, it's really cold. Why are you wearing that jacket?
Really?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Well, okay.
Well, you send a moron to deal with an asshole.
Well, look, other pharmaceutical companies certainly do participate in price gouging. But Martin Shkreli stood out because he got super greedy and went too far.
5,600% increase in Daraprim, which fights toxoplasmosis in AIDS patients. And he's not on trial for that. Like he's not on trial. That was a good Vice article I read that was like, I think it was Vice. It was like, he's not on trial for that.
Yeah.
He's on trial for robbing from other folks that were also trying to gouge prices.
That's right, that's right.
And so,
because
I don't know.
You can rob people in need. You can exploit the powerless as much as you want, but you can't take advantage of the wealthy.
Yeah,
you don't do that.
So weird. He's just a ball of neuroses with hatred in his bones.
All right, let's go to the great state of Florida for a local news story that caught my attention. I think you guys might find it a little interesting as well. A 64-year-old man in Hialeah, Florida was upset that AT&T utility workers were parked in front of his driveway. He allegedly asked them to move, and when they didn't do so, he took matters into his own hands. Take a look at the video to see what I'm talking about.
684 Southeast 5th Place, Miami, Florida. There's a guy shooting out the tires, and he's shooting the engine on the trucks and everything. All right, no problem. Shooting with an actual gun, a revolver, with an actual gun. He's shooting out the tires. All right. Yeah, I'm not even nowhere near the guy. He's a Spanish guy.
Spanish guy. Okay, so he is actually a former firefighter, and that's pretty much all we know about him. He did end up getting arrested, but his neighbors say that he's a good guy. I mean, he just sometimes gets a little upset.
Just don't park in his driveway. That's the big thing. I mean,
but no one's parked. No one's parked in his driveway. No one's parked in his driveway. These are just utility workers doing what utility workers do.
Well, they were blocking his driveway. I'm just saying.
Where are you gonna go, dude? Like you're that upset that you're gonna start shooting.
He might want to go somewhere.
All I'm saying is if the car is in the way, shooting out the engine which makes it move is not your solution.
When your driveway is blocked,
that's a great point. Shooting the tires.
This thing needs to move, so I'll just stop it from physically being able to do those things.
Here's the thing,
I get it though.
He has trouble making his point. There's a place in between, complaining and shooting. Maybe you can find that sweet spot.
And sanity ends here.
I'm so happy no one got hurt. I mean, usually stories like this end in the worst way possible. There was a worker, not inside the car, but I don't know what those things are called, those bucket things.
The bucket.
The cherry picker.
And then they do things that they do.
Nice.
With the utility line.
I mean, I love the guy calling it in. He's like, he's shooting the tires. And they're like, are you near him? He's like, no. But then he's just like across the street.
Yeah.
Here's what I do in that situation. Gone.
Yeah.
Gone. He has a gun. I'm gone. I
saw falling down.
Yes, I call the police, but I call the police as I'm running away.
Yeah, think about the normalization. Bullets ricochet.
Yes.
Sure.
He's shooting at this truck that has metal bumpers.
Yeah, and that truck has a family. Why would you shoot it? It has a family.
Oh my God, this master is so good.
Triggered is great.
It is good. Who came up with that?
Triggered is so good.
Trigger.
John. Okay. Well, not so great anymore.
Really?
No, look. Florida is, very lenient and laxed when it comes to guns. So that concerns me. I'm glad that the person who called the police remained calm. I'm glad he didn't get hurt. I'm glad no one else got hurt. But And I'm also glad that this guy used to be a firefighter and not a cop. Because if you lose your temper that easily, and open fire that easily, I mean, obviously cause for concern. But he has been arrested, and we'll see how it plays out.
Is that how he fought fires? Stop it, fire! Move,
You're
fire.
in my way. Go away.
He reloaded several times, by the way. He had to stop and reload. So
is it weird that I get part of it though? Like I get like they're blocking my driveway.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Dude. He's a senior citizen. He's irritated, probably taking a bunch of medicines for crap that we've never even heard of. And they're blocking his driveway. So he goes out and says, hey, don't block my driveway.
Listen.
And they go, hey, we're working on this. We'll let you know when we're done. And he goes, okay, I'll let you know when I'm done. Bam, 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 bam.
I would never do it. I don't think you would ever do it.
No.
But like it seems like it's not real. Like it seems like a thing from like a TV show.
He's a retired firefighter.
And
he's
sick and retired.
Yeah, okay. He's retired, which means he should be enjoying life. Like he's not in a rush to go anywhere. He's not in a rush.
Who says he's not enjoying? He's probably shooting cars out front of his house. I mean, that seems like a great time.
Like maybe I'd have a little more empathy if he's, he has like a super demanding job and he's running late and like life's hard, man. He's really struggling, and then there's utility workers blocking him and he can't get out and he's about to lose his job because he's gonna be late. I still wouldn't, justify him shooting up the car, but I mean, at least I'd have a little tiny bit of empathy. You're 64 years old. Relax. Someone take his gun away. Relax.
Older gentlemen get caught in their ways. He's like, nobody's gonna disrespect my house.
Right.
I'm just telling you, I don't agree either. I'm totally on your side, by the way.
But it's not his house. That's the car is parked on the street. The truck is parked on the street.
Blocking his driveway, Hannah.
A man's home is his castle. No, but real fast, because my father's an older gentleman. This is a few years ago. He hated how there was this really short place to park in front of his house. And he said, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna paint that curb red. It's like, Dad, that's illegal, don't do that. Yeah. But he's like, I'm gonna take it in my own hands because no one else will listen to me. So there's a stuck in your way. That's a level lower than just shooting out tires.
I want to talk about that in the post-game show. If you're a member, definitely check it out. tytnetwork.com/join if you're not a member. I hope you guys enjoy it. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Mark Thompson for joining in. Same to Brett Ehrlich.
You guys need to see the post-game show tomorrow, the Friday post-game show.
Yes.
Because I was told with probably 5 minutes to spare that I needed to host it. And so we just pulled out literally anyone nearby.
Oh,
and it's fantastic.
Sounds fun. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow. 1, 2, 3. Bye-bye.